now going on to the next part, which is the lovely speech from our lovely
Thank you. A big hand of applause to all of you. I think you guys are fantastic. I'm actually so impressed. I didn't know what I was going to see when I came over, but yeah, I'm really impressed. You guys have learned quite a lot over the past few days, obviously, this intensive boot camp. I hope they fed you and looked after you during that. But my job here is really just to encourage you. You know, I'm turning 60 this year. I'm always telling people that nobody ever believes me. That's why I say it. If I was wrinkly and finished, I wouldn't be saying it, right? But I'm turning 60 this year, and I've now lived long enough to see the development of technology over the past few years, right? And my banking experience is about 35 years, right, in banking. And I've seen how banking went from a paper shuffling business where we were dealing with customers and meeting them every day to an IT company which serves customers, right? Where you rarely meet your banker nowadays. Most of your transactions are done digitally. You rarely ever talk to the bank. You just go on an app or you go on Airtel Money and you do bank to wallets, you do all sorts of things. So we had to come to the realization that we were now IT companies, really, because that's what we spent our time focused on, is just keeping those systems running, right? Because that was the interaction and the point of contact with our customer, right? It was all IT-based, all app-based, and what you're learning here is transforming people's lives every day. So never look back. By being in IT, you are actually on the cutting edge of people's lives. Even I was watching a video the other day of a doctor doing an operation using a robot, right? Actually cutting people up. Okay, still in Malawi, we still use a knife and the whatever, and the scissors and snip it off and things like that. But overseas, he's sitting in a room and looking at a TV screen and just pressing buttons, and this thing is operating on an individual. So IT is affecting every single aspect of our lives. Every single aspect. And the power in this gadget is much more than the power in the rocket, the processing power that went to the moon. When did that happen? You guys were not born.
1964.
Absolutely, 1964. Right? The processing power in your cell phone, in your phone, by calling it cell phone, it shows how far it goes. In your phone is much, much more. So IT, you are really in the best business there ever is. So I call myself a banker, but really, I was an IT specialist. Every time we just had to get those systems working on a day-to-day basis. And you talked about cybersecurity. That is another area. In everything that you do, always know there's a fraudster in the background. There's a fraud. We banks, we are always hit, even in Malawi, several thousand times a day by somebody trying to penetrate the bank systems. Cybersecurity, whatever you learned there is so critical. So critical. And all our systems are set up to head off those threats. Right? So just a little bit of my background. Okay, I'm Zimbabwean actually, born in Zambia, but I lived in a number of countries. My father was sort of moving around, but eventually landed in Malawi because I married a Malawian. That's basically what happened to me. What happened to you? My daughter is here. My son-in-law is there. My daughter from another mother that I used to give birth to her is over here, Matilda. So I've got children here. But you know, my banking career, even though I ended up as CEO, worked in a number of countries, that is the highlight. And people always give you the top level, right? Wow, look at her, you know, whatever. Wow, wonderful, right? But I'm telling you here and now, life is a roller coaster. Life is a roller coaster. The only way up is through the valleys as well as the mountains. As long as it's going this way, right? But it's still going upwards, right?
Yeah.
But you will still fail. You will still fail. And you've got to accept that. So even as you're starting off in your IT careers, accept that there will be failure in whatever you do. My career started off with a spectacular failure. I did my O-levels, I was very intelligent at school, did very well at O-levels, and then because of the things that were going on at home, I won't go into details, right? I actually went into A-level managing to secure a scholarship to go to the UK to study computer science and accounting. Got into university and I was just a high flyer, but I flunked my A-levels. And I lost the scholarship. It flunked, yeah, you know, I couldn't qualify for the degree I wanted, but I could do something else in Zimbabwe. I was devastated. And my father says, well, but you can't sit at home, you know, you've got to do something. So he phoned a friend and got me a job at a bank. And said, off you go. So I started as a banker clerk, right? Lost of scholarship, feeling really bad, really low, right? Embarrassed, because everyone thought I was going to get it. Everyone. And I knew I was capable of getting it. And I knew the reason I didn't get it, right? So then I started my career as a young bank clerk, worked in shuffling paper there, right, for about a year and a half. Then I decided at that point, no, I'm going to go back to school. Now, we talk a lot, even amongst us girls. You girls are young, right? And you're making decisions for your career. And we're talking about women supporting each other. And even a group like this, we've got to continue to support each other. But the most important person in your life and your success is you. And the decisions that you make. So I had to make a couple of decisions. I decided to go back to university. I didn't redo my A-levels, and I did a political science degree at University of Zimbabwe, right? I decided to go back, and I also decided to, a critical thing, separate from my friends. I had friends at that time, and all we were focused on was the party and the everything, right? The party lifestyle, bag a rich man. I decided, now I'm being very honest with you, and for a year it was a goal. Right? But I decided, no, I'm changing. And some of my friends continued down that path. And when I look back at where they are now on Facebook, right? I know I made the right choice. I made the right choice. So I went back to school and I left friends. You know, there's a certain species of fish where apparently if you put it in a small tank, it remains small. But if you put it in an ocean, it just grows to its intended. Right? You are the sum total of the people you're hanging around with at this stage. Your friends should be lifting you up, encouraging you to go in the right direction. So if you need to make decisions now, that friendship app should also have an unfriend. An unfriend button. People who are encouraging you to do things. And I know a particular friend, she bagged a rich man, but there were so many other women around him, right? So many others bagged the same guy. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. I mean, he eventually died, and you know, she lived a miserable life. She had struggled now with the kids. But I had a career plan, right? And so I made that decision. But another decision, I took responsibility. Why did I fail? Right? I was blaming home, divorce, what was going on at home. It doesn't really matter. I should have still focused on my studies. So you take responsibility for where you are. And if you want to go forward, you've got to take responsibility for where you are going. You are responsible. There's no, yes, women will support each other, but there is no one who will take you to the next level. Right? So I went back to school. And then I started, the good thing is when I was working, I was able to come back and say, after I graduated, hey, can you guys at some company where they're developers, right? And you're self-learning, that app that where you're buying and selling whatever, right? You've got to now start thinking big. We need a commodity trading app in Malawi, right? Where people are buying and selling and setting futures. You know what futures are? You know, in banking, you'll say, oh, we've got futures, we've got options, we've got what, right? If you're able to buy and say, hey, next year you agree with the farmer, I'll buy your whole crop at this price. You say, so he knows his price, he knows it's done, that's a futures. An option is I can have the option to, and these are things that we do in the bank. So now, you as young people should know more about these things than me, than the people in the ground, right? And develop these things beyond what you've just started. This is just the beginning. But how will you know about commodity trading? Unless you Google it, right? There is no reason. When I was young, the reason for ignorance was quite clear. I had to go to a library. I had to physically walk to a library. Now you just Google it. Become a specialist. If you're a developer, become the best, right? So one of the questions I was asked when I was asked to come here is, how did you break the corporate ladder? It wasn't a women empowerment group. And I'm breaking this on you women, right? There is no glass ceiling. If you decide there's no glass ceiling for you. There is no man who's saying, no, we're not promoting. Listen, are you saying I'm not promoting women? I don't like women. Are you, any of you guys here? Confess your sins. Right? No, they're very, very, very few. But you just keep that aside and you keep going. Change your mindset. Right? And much as I support women empowerment, but girl, you've got to get up, pick up your mat and walk. And get moving. And become the best. So my career actually took off very suddenly. So I did my graduate training and I was a manager for a while, but then I really became serious. Became the best corporate banking manager, right? Would go to a client and I know the price, I know what that client is. If they're in tobacco, what are the prices, what's happening internationally, you know what I mean? And I became a trusted advisor. Right now, bankers don't do that, right? And so I became very, very good at my skill, at whatever in my profession, better than all the men around me. And then suddenly I was made senior manager, right? And then, within 9 months, I was running a bank in Mozambique. It was sudden. Because I became head of corporate banking, and then they were now buying a bank in Mozambique, and they said, we need a CEO, but I know she's still green and doesn't know much. We're sending her there. Right? And I went there and I knew nothing, but I read and within a couple of months, I knew what I was talking about. Right? You know that imposter syndrome that they talk about? It's a lack of knowledge. And a lack of capability, and you have no reason. So that continuous learning beyond this, whatever app you're setting up, that friend's app, it's probably been done by somebody else. Yes. Go and have a look. The recipe app has probably been done by other people, right? Go and have a look and say, how can I improve on this? How can I be better? How can I raise the standard, right? And have a vision. Think big. Commodity trading throughout Malawi, people buying and selling on our app, right? And finally, the last, because I've only got 10 minutes and I'm sure I've already blown that, sorry.
Don't worry, you can take your time. Take your time.
Right? Have a vision, write down your visions, have a routine. to back up. Success is intentional. You're right? It's very few people that it just happens to. That's why there are very few people at the top. The pyramid goes like this. It's those that are intentional. Make a plan for that future. Right? Have goals. Think big. But you can only think big when you see what others have done out there. Right? Why does TikTok? TikTok is what? An app? An app? That's what you've learned? Right? What did they add to it? You can do better. You are young, you've been given the opportunity. Start thinking big. Your dreams are too small. They put God to sleep. Raise your standards. The final thing I want to do, whatever you decide to do in your life, whether you want to be an entomologist, you know what an entomologist is? I'm looking for an ant. Someone who studies insects. That's an entomologist. But you guys have decided to be developers and UX and whatever, Flutter. What is a Flutter? What do you call it? Whatever you choose to be in life, understand money. Understand money. Right? So how did I progress? I progressed by being the best, upskilling, making decisions, leaving behind losers, and adopting friends that were winners, that looked forward, right? That didn't cry. And their income went down as a result. Monetize whatever you're a developer, you need to be paid. First thing, monetize, right? And continual income, the better, continual flow, much better, right? Monetize. Secondly, save. Spend what you make, right? Below what you make. Save, have some savings, and also have some investments. But I do not have the time to teach you how to make money for you whilst you're sleeping at this time. This is something you've got to research and do early. Do it early. But understand, money will collapse your business. As a developer, you'll grind to a halt. Your app will become glitchy and making mistakes and things like that. Why? Because the developer is not getting paid. Right? Money is the flow, is what basically, what do they call it? Oils everything that we're doing. Even an entomologist, the fact that he has to go out there and count how many ants there are in the grass there, and look at the ant population and how they move and how they, some people find that exciting, right? But he needs to be paid. He needs to be paid, right? And there is no shame. The love of money is the root of all evil, but you need it. It's up there with oxygen. Otherwise, you're useless. You can't help anybody if you cannot help yourself. Right? But most of all, failure is guaranteed. Many times throughout my career, I failed. I had to be called in, oh, you need to improve. I had a boss that demanded that I start reading, right? Becoming the best. That's how I also changed. Because I had somebody challenging me. Right? But when you fall, you gotta prepare. Because I'm saying when, because it's a guarantee. Failure is a learning point. Pick up your mat, dust yourself up. Whatever you've been doing so far, it's fine. You just make a U-turn. But lose those losers. I'm telling you, as young people, that was the best decision that I ever made. Pick up your mat and start walking, right? And go forward. Thank you very much. I think I've taken up my time.